Sensing fear. Fear. I've written about it a number of times, and having seen it have such consequences when used in a group setting in real life, felt it needed revisiting. Previous articles about it I will list at the end of the post. Olfactory, perception, and senses. All these things work together to give us a sense of our surroundings, so we can assess our personal situation at hand. I guess for safety and opportunity. We do interpret those signals received differently as people, and will react differently to those responses. So, imagine that they all aren't working together anymore, to give you that realistic sense of surroundings. Perceptions have been altered, senses have been numbed by way of medications and mother's little helper, as they say. And the olfactory? Well, for some that was willingly relinquished by wearing a mask and covering one's face, which made me think at the time, people were helping to limit their ability to use their senses. It's funny really, when you think of the saying, taken leave of your senses, because it really does seem like that occurred. Could it be partially because they had? Also, we saw a distinct lack of common sense, something that is taken for granted and is joked about these days. The fact that it isn't so common after all. But what does it mean to have common sense? We are led to believe it's about being down to earth and grounded and common, and then associated with being poor or lower class. Have a bit of common, they say, and they are right. To me, it's just rational and logical thought, nothing to do with class, but interesting how words and meanings can make people not notice something. Terms are being redefined before our eyes these days, so good to know what things actually mean, and use your own common sense to see or know when something isn't right. Another fear that was used and played out, visible for many to see, was a fear of missing out and of being judged, playing on people's social weaknesses and personal wants to sway them. Cheap and obvious tactics, I thought, but they appeared to work. With promises of travel, special rights, ice cream, donuts and stickers, many stepped up. And then they had to threaten to take those things away from people. No travel, no socialising, no seeing loved ones. To bring more fear into people's lives and thoughts, using more emotive lures to get people on board. Still, some followed the Pied Piper, blinded by the fear of missing out, but from something meaningful as time went on. Then threats and coercion came for the ones who still weren't playing ball, and they tried ever so hard on them, using livelihoods, family, stability, finances, to make them so afraid that they would do anything. But knowing that so many stood firm and either didn't have any fear, or felt the fear and still didn't go along with it, was a small heartwarming moment in these dark times. Every fibre of some people's being seemed to be on high alert as soon as the talk of restrictions came in, and knew something was coming. And very quickly it was noticed that something was very much amiss. And this is where we know that all of those senses aren't just for fear. They are for life and awareness, to sense everything around us and what we are. If we aren't listening to ourselves or understand what our own body and mind is telling us, then we are vulnerable to others taking advantage of that. Medications have all sorts of side effects people don't really talk about or even know. For example, I was quite surprised to find out that some painkillers actually dampen emotions and empathy, killing all feeling, not just pain. Covered in my article Memory. Interesting for the other experiments it mentions too. So, our senses have been under attack for quite some time, being numbed and distracted wherever possible, entertained and medicated to keep us busy and absorbed in a shallow world of their making, with deep undercurrents of corruption, revealing a very sinister, well-organised, ingrained mentality in many who preside over society in some form. And that is where fear really helps those who seek to control and manipulate others, especially if they have manufactured the reason you are afraid. It gives them the upper hand, to know what you are afraid of, because they can tailor triggers and ideas to work on that. Fear can be useful to the individual experiencing it though, and being able to work through it or use it can be helpful. But in these times of corruption and deception, I really think that we should keep our wits about us and stay sharp. And if there was ever a time when you needed people to come to their senses, it would be now. The other articles listed are Living in Fear, Fear, and Fear, a follow-up.